if I may add to what Mr. Jaitley has said, see, I would urge four things to be kept in mind when we talk about the disappointment in Washington about the supplier's liability. See, first, the backdrop of the Bhopal gas tragedy and the fact that the whole debate got resurrected after the recent judgment and the huge kind of outcry in India about the very paltry level of what people consider paltry level of compensation that was offered to the victims. Second, the cost of nuclear power itself. There are very serious concerns about how costly it will be and whether the state electricity boards will be able to really afford to purchase the electricity generated from nuclear plants and put them on the distribution network, and the differential between thermal-based plants, and India has plentiful coal, so thermal power is much cheaper than nuclear power. So there is a debate on that. Third, you would be aware of another major issue that's rattling the Indian system right now, which is opposition to land acquisition, particularly when it comes to setting up nuclear power plants. There's a big problem going on in Maharashtra, Jaitapur, where the French company has won the contract and then they are trying to set up the reactor, but there is a lot of resistance. And land acquisition itself has become a big issue across the country on various themes. And when it comes to nuclear power plants, the opposition is that much greater, because in addition to the opposition to land acquisition, there are people, and that's my fourth point, who have reopened the debate on the desirability of nuclear power itself, especially in the aftermath of the tsunami in Japan and what we have seen. My colleague Janardhan may like to comment on that, but I'm only saying that, look, there are these four issues. So the Bhopal tragedy background, the cost of nuclear power, the issue of land acquisition for nuclear power plants, and the debate on the desirability of nuclear power itself. Now, given this background, I think that there needs to be some understanding, some kind of realization that it may not be a very popular kind of cause, setting up of nuclear power plants and reactors and increasing the quantum of nuclear energy in the system. In principle, I don't think there is very strong opposition to nuclear power or entire program, or even to the Indo-US deal. But safeguards, kind of roadblocks, and kind of ensuring that something untoward or problematic does not arise in future. I think this is a very genuine concern of political parties, other groups, activists, civil society organizations. I think this has to be kept in mind. India is not unique in this matter. There are other countries too where similar issues have cropped up. Jonathan, do you want to add something on?
I think you covered it very well. Probably energy is definitely something we all need, but it's something like we need power, but we don't want a reactor in our backyard, right? So this is a typical tendency we all see in most of the parts of the world. So, definitely, it's filling the void between our conventional energy sources and also the renewable energy sources, which need to be viable down the line. However, we still need to address the issues such as waste management, which appears to be one of the major concern, especially given that India is kind of, we have issues on the land availability, given the density of the people we have now. We do not really have the luxury of wide landscape. So handling these issues, such as handling the nuclear waste, is one of the serious concerns, given that we haven't been very successful in combating the terrorism and many of these issues. Therefore, I think we need to seriously look into all these things and have a very comprehensive plan to implement them.
So keeping all these factors in mind, as I said in a response to an earlier question, which is put on banking and insurance, with this kind of a debate in India, and a divided opinion on various issues, the government of the day, unfortunately I am in opposition, so I don't have to make that opposite choice, has to then decide between the best alternative available. And I think when the government and the opposition worked word by word, clause by clause, and came to this conclusion, within the dynamics of the political process in India, I think the government of India legitimately thought that this is the best option which was available to them. It was a forward movement, may not be to the full liking of all.
Right there.
Dennis Cooks from the Woodrow Wilson Center. Looking at India in the world and hoping that India will really reach the great power table that I think it deserves, there's one issue that sort of sticks out, doesn't stick out, it hangs over the neck like an albatross, and that of course is Kashmir. I'm wondering, what is your game plan? I mean, how do you see the problem being solved in a way that satisfies the people of Kashmir, who ultimately must, if they don't agree, you don't have a solution. Forget about Pakistan.
It's certainly an issue which Pakistan has raised from time to time. I mentioned in my opening comment, Pakistan always had a difficulty in reconciling to Jammu and Kashmir being a part of India. And therefore, in its endeavor to raise the issue, you've had 3 stages of a Pakistan strategy. The first stage itself was conventional war. They took away a part of Kashmir in the late 40s. And then they realized that conventional war with India may not yield results for Pakistan. Subsequent efforts didn't succeed. Cross-border terrorism was tried. And suddenly they realized a few years ago that the global appetite for either accepting terrorism or allowing you to reap the fruits of terror itself is now limited. The world doesn't accept it. So you've had small separatist groups in the valley which are actively supported by them. Violence is a strategy by those groups. And therefore, sporadic incidents which come up really do come up essentially because of violent protests. So last year also, the stone throwing incidents. Now these are not stone throwing incidents which have taken place in isolation. These were all planned and concerted efforts. There's a police picket of 6 people. You have a mob of 5,000 people with 5 stones each in their bag. So 25,000 stones being thrown at 6 people. Obviously there will be some police reaction. And therefore the protests would come up as a result of whatever action which would take. In a peaceful Kashmir, and there's a lot of Indian effort which goes in. It's not only the security expenditure, even in terms of developmental expenditure, the per capita expenditure that is put into the state of Jammu and Kashmir by the government of India is huge. In fact, you'll be surprised that the below poverty line figure in India amongst the least is in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That's essentially because of the kind of resource that the Indian state puts in. Now, in a peaceful Kashmir, these few separatist leaders, and I can assure you there are not too many of them, are essentially speakers every Friday at the prayer meeting. They survive only when there is turmoil in Kashmir. So their strategy is to provoke a violence incident. Now, we in India, and in fact, in one of the, not only as India as a state, we had a parliamentary delegation which went last year, and my party is considered comparatively far stronger on the Kashmir issue than most other parties. I penned down a reaction which will be circulated to you as a part of a booklet,